A very warm welcome to this session from me, Betsy King from Learning for Sustainability Scotland, and we're going to be joined in this short session by colleagues, my colleague Kirsten Leask from Learning for Sustainability Scotland, Louise Campbell from GTC Scotland, Lynn McNair from Cowgate Under 5 Centre in Edinburgh, Denise McCall from Logan Primary School, which is in East Ayrshire, and Keith Turner from Speyside High School in Murray. Thank you all for joining today's session. And I can see folk are continuing to do it, but please let us know who you are and where you're from in the chat. It's great to see so many people in the session. So next slide, please. I'm sure you're used to this, but just a bit of housekeeping before we do get going. Just to remind you, first of all, that this session is being recorded. Also, as usual, please, could you switch your microphones off so that we don't get feedback unless you're actually speaking? And also switch off your camera if you wish as well. But we really would love questions to be coming, and so please, if you have any questions right through the session, please just pop those into the chat, use the chat function for questions. So what is this session about? Well, you'll have seen that this session is called Learning for Sustainability, the Professional Standards and You. And essentially, it's about how to support you in realizing the entitlement for learners, that is learning for sustainability. And of course, learning for sustainability also underpins what it means to be a teacher in Scotland. So what does this mean, and what support is there available to you for this? So in this short session, we're on the welcome and introductions now, but we'll hear first from Louise Campbell at GTC Scotland, who, so if you could mute your microphones, that would be great. Thank you very much. And so we'll hear shortly from Louise at GTC Scotland about the place of learning for sustainability in the standards. And then it will be over to the practitioners that I mentioned from Edinburgh, East Ayrshire and Murray to have a conversation really about what this means in your practice. What does it mean for them? We're going to give you opportunities yourselves to then have a bit of an input, and then look at support that is being offered on the GTC Scotland website in the Learning for Sustainability Hub. So we'll have a brief tour of that hub, and then again, opportunity to share your thoughts on what you've heard, and then closing by 1:15. So over to you, Louise. Let me hand over to Louise from GTC Scotland.
Thank you, Betsy. That's great. Hello, everyone. I'm Louise. Just really my role here this morning is to remind people as much as anything else about why sustainability is so crucial to all our work and everything that we're thinking about in relation to working with learners, the work of teaching in general. There can be a perception that learning for sustainability is a form of additionality. Really what I'm here to do today is just to remind you and point out that that's not necessarily the case. So a very quick recap, though you may not need it, about what the 3 pillars of sustainability are. And this diagram is a well-kent one, I'm sure you've seen it before. The 3 pillars of sustainability are ecological sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability. And for us in education, those really mean some very basic things. Next slide, please, Kirsten. Really ecological has to do with how we're thinking about and interacting with our environment. The social is about how we're thinking about and interacting with one another and the communities around us. And the economic is about how we are contributing to local or national or global growth and the sense that communities can build into an economic force. So really, if we're thinking about these three elements of sustainability, they're essentially, and in the most basic sense, underpinning everything we do in education, because everything we do in education is about our relationships with one another and with the world around us. So really just to think about sustainability from the perspective that it's in and through everything that we're already doing. And sometimes there can be this sense that it's something we're superimposing, that we're adding. It shouldn't necessarily be. And what we're doing through the professional standards, or what the GTC has tried to do through the professional standards, is to embrace these ideas through every aspect of practice. Next slide, please. So you'll see some examples here of what learning sustainability can mean in terms of how we identify aspects of the work that we're doing. You can see children's rights there, you can see health and well-being there, outdoor learning's there, problem solving's there, social justice is there, global citizenship, and so much more. And really, the sustainability element of these things is coming from the sense of the relationships that we're forming through the work that we're doing in relation to these aspects of our practice. I'm sure there are things there that you can see that are absolutely tied to what you do every day in your work. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to read this to you. You can read it for yourselves, but just to show you exactly what the wording is in the professional standards. In the SFR, this is what it says about the standard for full registration. I'll just give you a moment to read through that. So the key thing there is really in the final sentence. Learning for Sustainability is embedded in the suite of professional standards to support teachers in actively embracing and promoting principles and practices of sustainability in all aspects of their work, which means that it needs to be the underpinning of everything that we do. And just to fill out some of that detail a little bit more, next slide, please. You can see some of the wording from section 1.1, which is social justice in the professional standards. And this is telling us that it's about sustainability of relationships, it's about equity, it's about social justice, it's about policies which take these things into account that are inclusive. And it's about the sense that these things will enable us to develop citizenship and a sense of place for everybody that's involved in education. Next slide, please. And in 1.1, which is the trust and respect section of the professional values, there is the pointing towards the natural world, respect for the natural world. But as you can see, that's only one aspect of the many different areas or dispositions that are associated with learning for sustainability. And the second point there is about the sustainability of a diverse and inclusive society. So it's a huge area, it's a huge number of things to be thinking about. But I think the overriding message here is that this is really about how we think about our work, how we create a world that is not just for us in the here and now, but it's leading to a better world for the future, a more sustainable world for our young people and for their families and for the world around them. And on that note, I will hand you over to Kirsten.
Thank you so much, Louise. It was wonderful to hear the way in which you were illustrating how learning for sustainability influences and is embedded across the professional standards. And what I'd like to do now is to introduce 3 practitioners who are doing just that, who are embedding learning for sustainability into their everyday practice and making it part of everything that they do. So I'm going to stop the slides and ask Dr. Lynn McNair from Cowgate Under 5 Centre in Edinburgh, Denise McCall from Logan Primary School in East Ayrshire, and Keith Turner from Speyside High School in Murray to switch their cameras on, and we will have our conversation. So it's wonderful to see you all. Denise, if you could perhaps unmute yourself, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask you a question, and I hope that you will do us the honour of sharing your thoughts on this question. And the question is very simple. What does learning for sustainability mean to you as teachers in Scotland?
Happy to kick off, if that's okay. Is that okay, Denise? And yeah. So first of all, I think it's an instantly recognisable term. I think evokes, you know, what the Scottish curriculum is all about, global citizenship, outdoor learning. It's well considered as a term. It kind of distinguishes from didactic approaches. And I think what was said earlier about it being holistic, so permeating throughout the whole curriculum and not just, oh, we're working on learning for sustainability today. It's across all learning. I think that we always need to be thinking about what we're doing in a way that it's not a complacent kind of approach, that we're constantly rethinking what we're doing all the time. And if I were to link it to other aspects, I mean, the word cloud that was up earlier, or the Menti, with illustrated loads of interesting kind of aspects of it. But I think for me, I think about children's rights within learning for sustainability, about the importance of protecting biodiversity and health and well-being, and of course social justice, how that was mentioned earlier also in the Menti. I think, and I'll just finish with this one thing, but I think it's about how we as humans live in a world that's more than human. I think that there's a kind of post-humanist kind of way of thinking about learning for sustainability. Over to you guys. Sorry, I'll not speak too much.
Will I come in there? Learning for sustainability, it's a kind of loaded phrase, and I suppose it means different things to different people. And I think one of the challenges we have is giving it its broadest sense to everybody and making sure that everybody has that sense of ownership about it, because I think it is something that we all inherently do in our practice, obviously, and at every stage of our practice. So obviously I'm a head teacher now, but not so long ago I was a class practitioner. For me, learning for sustainability is the why, the what and the how of everything that I do that's to do with education. It's the why be a teacher? What are those values that brought me into this? What is it I want to achieve? What skills do I want these young people that I have in my care to have to future-proof? Because they need that. And also learning for sustainability is the how. How do we go about this sharing of skills and knowledge and values, and the context and the pedagogy that we use within our schools in terms of the cultures that we have? So for me, it's the why, the what and the how of everything that I do.
I'll come in there now. Thanks, everyone. As a class teacher here, I'm PT Geography in Speyside High. It's very easy for me for learning for sustainability. It's seen as an area of the curriculum that kind of sits within geography and biology and modern studies and that kind of thing. But it's so much more than the content. It's about how we deliver. It's about creating the critical thinkers and the disruptive thinkers that we want our young people to be. And as the secondary practitioner, certainly as kids get up towards certificate level, you know, you really want them asking the big questions about what you're delivering to them. And to me, that's what Learning for Sustainability is all about. I liked how you kind of linked the sustainability back to children's rights. What I try and do in the secondary sector is link it to the UN SDGs, which have obviously got that global element. And I think making kids realise that they are part of that global community and they've all got a role to play is kind of key. What I would say to people who are here in the session today who are school leaders is Learning for Sustainability. We've said it's kind of at the heart of everything. So please make sure it doesn't just come to the geographer or the biologist or the modern studies teacher. We all need to embrace Learning for Sustainability. It's in all our standards, irrespective of which discipline you're sitting in within a school. And I think if we can do that, it can actually help build your school community as well.
I really liked both of what you said. I'm also, my practice is underpinned by the work of Friedrich Froebel. So he was an early years pioneer who he talked about interconnectedness of everything and unity, and you can really see that coming in from both of what you said. I mean, this isn't simply about recycling bins, is it? You know, I think that we all got these recycling bins and suddenly it was like, oh yes, we recycle. It permeates our everyday living experience, and that's certainly, I think, what's coming out. I mean, I think if we introduce, for Froebel, it was all about real lived experiences. So if children are planting, it's about discussing what's happening, what you're planting, so you're planting food. It gives you an opportunity to talk about famine and other, or extreme weather, and the impact extreme weather can have. And let's face it, in our world, in the world of the rich countries, it's often the poorer countries that suffer because we're not considering our planet, and you know, it's the poorer countries that seem to end up suffering greater because of sometimes our indulgence. And I think it's really important to open these sensitive discussions with our children, and just helping them understand that we all, as you say, have a place in the world, that it's really key that we're responsible for ourselves and our impact on the world and what we can do. So I really, and you're absolutely right, it is simply not just for geographers or, you know, it's for us all to take place. And I don't know, we're living in a wonderful world, because I love that the fact that we've got a head teacher here with green hair. Just, it's fantastic. I love it. And I think that it means that we're changing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what stood out in the standards as well is that just and equitable world. When we're talking about, you know, excellence and equity in our own curriculum, you know, it lends itself, if you look at the national performance framework sitting at that kind of higher policy level, you know, it mirrors the global sustainable goals for, you know, for global development. And I think there is an element of it. We also have to recognise some of the challenges within our own communities, not always, you know, that idea of looking to the global south. Actually, we have a lot of the same sustainable challenges within our own communities. And as people who are embedded, I suppose a school's probably the last embedded service within, you know, our communities. We're out there doing it. You know, we're in an ideal place through shaping our curriculum, through the curriculum in the widest sense, in terms of how we engage with communities, for really developing those, you know, some of that performance framework. It sits there, you know, education is a big part of it, you know, for thinking about developing the young workforce, thinking about those sustainable skills that we have. So, you know, it very much, it's part of our own business, not just looking to the global south as well. You know, I feel quite strongly about that. And yeah, we can't leave it, although geographers are very good, we can't leave it to you all. I mean, and it is at every level, and it is at that strategic level of school leadership, as well as being, you know, leaders of learning at every point. And I think that's reflected in the standards as well. The fact that it comes through at every level shows its importance. And if you think about, you know, curriculum design, or even go back to, you know, principles like the 4 capacities. It's there. It's not explicit. It's not written. It's not got LfS label on it, but it is absolutely there in everything that we do and why we do it.
I think what,
oh, sorry.
No, on you go. On you go.
I'll just say very quickly, but in early years for us, it's much more about, Frobel said, many children and adults treat nature as one treats the air. One lives in it while knowing nothing about it. And I think that when we're in the early years, that's kind of what we're always doing, kind of speaking to children about their place in the world and their impact on the world, and exactly what you're saying about the 4 capacities. They all are like underpin it exactly. Sorry, over to you. Sorry about that interruption.
I was just going to say that one of the things I love about learning for sustainability, particularly in the current climate, is that kind of head, hand, heart approach to it. And I think, you know, there's such a need for us to be factful with kids in the classroom, you know, so that we need that kind of content drive in the classroom where we're challenging misinformation that's out there, but we also need those critical thinking skills, and we need kids to engage at a kind of value level, whether it's their environment around them or the wider global environment. So I think that whole focus within LfS and within the GTC documents, where they draw on Geddes, who was such a great Scottish polymath, we'll claim him as a geographer, but I'll accept he's a polymath. But his whole thinking, which is now so old, but still at the heart of LfS, the idea that we need the knowledge, we need the skills, but we need that kind of emotional connection as well. I think that's super important to what we're trying to achieve in every classroom, whether it's early years or whether it's my 6th year before they head off to college and university. It's about engaging with what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Fantastic, folks. Are there any sort of top tips like that, or practical approaches that you would like to share with the audience? We do actually have a question here about being interested, this is from Lily, about being interested in how you manage students' anxiety about the future in your practice. So any top tips on that and other aspects of practice that you can give our audience today?
Can I just cut in there, Kirsten? Just before this session, I had my own S2 class, and it's the climate crisis that we're covering at the moment. And I think it comes down to that factful element. I think when we're talking about sustainable future, we're talking about sustainability issues, we have to be honest with kids. We have to back it up with the scientific facts that are out there, but we also need to encourage them to be critical about it, and give them an opportunity to be the young activists that we want our pupils to be. You know, there's been no major social change in history that hasn't involved being an activist or being disruptive. And I think trying to get that from our young people as they come through, they can feel like they're making a difference. And that can often be a great way of handling their own individual anxieties if they feel like they can make a difference. And I think we're at a good point at the moment. We've got Scottish Climate Week next week. There's lots of things happening that young people can get involved in, irrespective of what age and stage they're at.
And I often think that people don't think that in the early years, children, the very young children, concern themselves with it, but they absolutely do. And, you know, I think for me, it's about connecting that kind of the form, the energy, the substance, the sense and colour all together, and speaking to children, having all the dialogue, just exactly what you're saying, speaking to them about it. We do things like, the children will do things like, go out and litter pick cigarette butts, for example, and have a knowledge of how long they take to decompose or whatever it is they do. And we bag them all up, and we don't do like, you know, like masses of bags, but we take a bag down to the Scottish Parliament and say, you know, this is happening. And the children are exactly what you're saying about being activists and feeling like they can do something. And as I say, some people think, oh, the early years, can they really take that on board? But they absolutely can, and they can think about the consequences of these kind of actions. So you're right. I think that helping our children and young people have the information they need, but also to respond to it in a way that it is critical. So not just accepting everything that's said to them, but using a kind of an approach that is responsive to it.
I think for myself, and probably I'm going to say I've got quite a difficult sector, because they know enough to be terrified in some cases, but maybe can't see their way out of it. I think you do have to manage it. I think kids, you know, are quite often bombarded by Blue Planet and all the rest of it. If you only focus on climate change, which, let's face it, a lot of kids don't have control over, you know, that's for governments. It's not that we don't have a part to play and we can't reduce, and, you know, all the messages that we send about recycling, reduce and, you know, reuse. But I think there's so much breadth within sustainability in relationships, sustainability, you know, in terms of gender equalities. And if you look at those global goals, it's perhaps focusing on the ones where you can make the biggest impact gives that sense of empowerment, rather than disempowering children with things that are, you know, that are not, there are problems. It's not for kids to fix them, you know, and it's unfair for that. But definitely the kind of campaigns that you do, whether it's banning glitter or these things, are good. But I think you have to manage it. You have to think about it sensibly. But I think there's so much scope in it about, you know, those values that actually you know, you're empowering children to lead learning with others and with those adults that are around them as well. But yeah, it is scary for young people, and I think we have to take cognizance of that to be doing them justice, because it's certainly a different world that they've inherited.
Can I cut back in here? Just, I noticed there's a comment in the chat as well by Josh, who I think we've had here in Speyside as part of the Climate Ready Classrooms project that's run by Keep Scotland Beautiful. And I would say that the development and education centres that are around Scotland and Keep Scotland Beautiful and a couple of other organisations like that, we've all got access to them as practitioners, and the stuff they do is outstanding. If there's anyone out there kind of doubting how they want to approach learning for sustainability, the stuff that the decks do is amazing. You know, development compass is something that I now embed in loads of my classes. And it's that, you know, we're used to talking to kids about the natural, the economic, the social impacts of things, but it's that who's got the power. So it comes back to you saying about, you know, the problems that kids are inheriting, and how do we frame these issues of sustainability in terms of decision makers.
Have you used the heads up toolkit? It's I'll maybe try and see if we can put that in there, but for kids to understand where, you know, the power lies, or what the, you know, these unsimple solutions, it's really an amazing tool. And again, it's about those critical thinking skills, and also for staff, for, you know, to realise that sometimes what they're delivering has a very, you know, global north perspective on it, you know, and that's been really useful as well. So yeah, you're right, there's lots of really valuable resources in terms of support and tools that can be used.
And I think that the intersectionality of what we're talking about, you know, we've got in our school at the moment, we've done a lot of CPD recently with the TIE organisation, looking at LGBTQ plus rights. You know, the building racial literacy is a big thing with Education Scotland, which is fantastic. But these things all overlap so tightly with learning for sustainability. And I think it's just acknowledging that interconnectedness of it all.
Folks, thank you so much for that. I'm really sorry to have to cut the conversation short. I think we could talk all day. As we know, we've got so many fantastic things to share. We're getting some great resources shared in the chat, so please do keep those coming. We'll put links to the things that have been mentioned by Lynn and Keith and Denise in the chat as well. And we're going to be sharing some additional resources later in this presentation. But for now, can I just say a huge thanks to our three conversationalists. It's been fantastic hearing from you all. And please do stay on, because I would imagine there might be more questions from the audience. But now I'm going to invite the audience itself to be part of this discussion. And we're going to just have a group discussion. We're obviously quite constrained by time today, but we hope that this is just the start of the journey together. So I'm just going to bring back the slides and share with you 3 questions that we'd like you to consider. And we're going to ask you to do this using an application called a Jamboard, which I'll share more about in a moment. I know many of you will have used it before, some of you may not, so we'll show you that in a moment. But these are the questions that we'd like you to consider, very similar to the ones that our conversationalists were discussing. What does learning for sustainability mean to you as a teacher in Scotland? How are you embedding it into your practice? And what impact does embedding LFS in your practice have on your learners? Because obviously this is somebody mentioned this idea of dialogue and this idea of sharing learning. So I'm just going to bring up the Jamboard. And I think Betsy and Louise are going to put the link to the Jamboard in the chat so that you can access it yourselves. But I'll bring up the Jamboard and just show you what that looks like. And hopefully you can see that just now. I'm hoping that that's visible. If it's not, can someone please unmute and tell me? But the way it works is essentially it's a digital whiteboard.
We can't see it yet.
Ah, right, okay. It might be coming up soon, hopefully.
Hi, Kirsten. I think you need to switch the
Share
screen that you're
again.
using.
Let's try again. Sorry, my apologies, folks. Okay, hopefully that's visible now.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can see that now.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so yes, as I say, it's a digital whiteboard, and the way it works is down the left-hand side, you'll see a series of controls. The 4th control down is a digital sticky note. So if you click on that, and you can change the colour if you want to. So let's go for a cheery pink, and you can put your thoughts on here. So type what you want to share, just type save, and it creates that digital sticky note. And then you can put your thoughts wherever you feel they are applicable. So that's what we'd like you to do. So over to you. It'd be great to see these questions and thoughts coming in. And of course, if you want to delete anything, you can do. Over to you. So it's great to see these reflections coming in, and wonderful to see the breadth of themes and approaches that are being shared here, particularly this idea of a holistic approach to sustainability that goes beyond just the ecological to include the social and the economic, as Louise outlined earlier. Some wonderful examples of particular disciplines here. Languages particularly getting a mention here, and the fact that the SDGs are being used. North Ayrshire Council are commenting there in terms of how they're using it, the SDGs as a framework across all settings in North Ayrshire to make learning for sustainability part of the everyday. To really show that interconnected nature of sustainability, if we tug on one thing in nature, it has impacts elsewhere, as to paraphrase John Muir. Someone reflecting there that it allows them to engage pupils meaningfully in the world around them. And that's, if we think about it, is obviously one of the core purposes of education, is this idea of meaning and relevance, place-based learning that ultimately provides those kind of transformative experiences for our young people. Some great ideas of examples. South Lanarkshire talking about their workshops on green stewardship, this idea that we are stewards of the natural world and everything in it. So please do keep these comments coming. We will leave the Jamboard open beyond the session if people would like to come in and reflect on what they've heard, because we've still got quite a lot to share with you. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Louise, who is going to tell you a little bit more about a resource that we hope you will engage with more fully in terms of your own practice. So Louise, over to you.
Hello, yes, I'm here, but my camera doesn't. Oh, there we go. Satellite delay to the camera. Thank you, Kirsten. And I just want to say how lovely it is to see all these great examples of the noticing and the including and the contributing and the awareness of sustainability and all these different elements of practice. And it was fantastic to hear from colleagues in the different sectors as well. Just that discussion about the life of sustainability that's going on within these schools, I think is really heartening and a great example. So what I'm going to do now, just very quickly, it's just a whistle stop, is to introduce you to some of the material that's available to support your Learning for Sustainability journey. And it's available through the hub on the GTC website. And Betsy and Kirsten have been working really hard in partnership with us at the GTC to produce the resources that are on there. And there's some really, really good, strong, helpful resources to support you. If you want to have a wee look at it, there is, you can just do a search on GTC Learning for Sustainability Hub and you should get to it relatively straightforwardly. If you go to the homepage on the GTC website and come right down to the bottom, there is a link to the Sustainability Hub. Oh, and Betsy's put a link in the chat there as well. So what you find when you reach the landing page for the Learning for Sustainability Hub is you'll find that there are 4 areas for just to kind of organise your experience of engaging with the hub. And the first of these is about exploring, the next about engaging. We've got one about enacting and embedding sustainability in your practice. And then we've got an area about connecting with others. So just to take you very quickly through some of the material that's in these areas. In the Explore section, we have some information for you just to help define learning for sustainability. There's a professional guide there that was written with colleagues at Learning for Sustainability Scotland. And there are some videos for you to engage with there just to help you, enrich your understanding of what learning for sustainability can mean for you and your practice. As we move on to the next section, next slide. Oh.
That's the engage slide.
Oh, it moved. It moved without me seeing. Apologies. Too quick for me. Too quick for me. So within engage, the engage section, it's about the thinking about your own practice and bringing it to your own self-evaluation, your own thinking about your journey. So there is some information there about how we see learning for sustainability across all of the suite of professional standards. And then there's a coaching wheel to help you ascertain where you are on this journey, just to help you reflect a little bit and self-evaluate. And again, there's some material there to help you see other people exploring this journey for themselves. Next slide, please. The material that's in the Enact and Embed section, there are learning modules there, very thoughtful, provocative learning modules there to help you develop your own understanding, but also to help you reflect on where you are on this journey, but also where your next steps might take you and what all of this can mean for your practice. The first 2 modules are currently on the website. The third one will be on the website very shortly. It's just in the final tinkering stages just now, but it shouldn't be too much longer before that's up for you to engage with. These are very accessible, they're very user-friendly, and we would definitely encourage you to go in and have an explore. They do build, the modules build across, so you're advised to start at the beginning and work your way through. But if there is something there that's particularly taking your interest, you can absolutely begin where you feel it's most appropriate for you to begin. Lots of resources for you there as well, lots of reading, lots of teaching resources, lots of links, and again, further videos to support your learning. And then last but not least, we have the Connect section. Now, there are monthly drop-in sessions for you to engage with others and talk to the community about what you're doing with your learning, with your practice, and to hear a little bit of inspiration from others as well to help you along your journey. There's also a lovely interactive map there, so you can engage with other people. You can see where they are and where they're participating from. There's a sign up area there, so you can get the link. It's all done via Teams to make it as accessible as possible to everyone, and we would strongly encourage you to come along. The ones we've had so far have been great. They've been really energetic and full of lots of good ideas and lots of excellent sharing of practice. And I think I'm now oh yes, we want your feedback. Betsy, over to you.
Thanks for that whistle stop tour, Louise. Great. We really would like to hear feedback from practitioners, because the hub is for you. And so you'll see on the second page of the Jamboard that there's an opportunity there for you to give us any feedback. And obviously you'd need a bit more time to have a close look and think about where the gaps might be, or positive feedback, feedback for things that you would like to see that aren't there, would be extremely helpful. So please share your thoughts on the Jamboard and continue to do that beyond this session. And I think this isn't the start of the conversation, is something that we quite strongly want to say to you, that it's been great to engage with you during this period, but we really don't want to see this as the end of the conversation. Louise, next slide, please, Kirsten. Louise mentioned how to join the conversation and continue to connect. And there are monthly drop-in sessions. It's always the third Thursday of the month. It's between 4 and 5, and you can sign up on the hub. So just going into the hub and signing up on Eventbrite to join, to drop in between 4 and 5 and connect with other practitioners. There tends to be a different theme for each month. Say the next one's on the 29th of September, and it would be fantastic to see you there. It's time now to thank everybody for joining this session, to thank all of you, particularly for joining, but in particular to thank our conversationalists today, who gave us really such an inspiring insight into what learning for sustainability means to them, and about how they are supporting in their settings the entitlement to learning for sustainability. Please feel free to connect either at the drop-in sessions, or drop us an email, or drop us a tweet. Do connect. This, we hope, won't be the end. We hope it's a continuation of your learning for sustainability journey. Thanks for joining.